Today we're going to be going over what does a real estate attorney do for a seller. Let's dive right in. Selling a property can sometimes be a complex process, especially if there's multiple parties involved, but there are also specific states in the United States that are attorney states that want an attorney involved for a property to close. And where I'm from in Utah, it's not an attorney state. You don't need an attorney to get a property closed. It's a title state. But there's certain states out there that do. So why is this necessary? Why is it like that? Well, let's dive right in. I'll answer that question. What's the difference between an attorney that represents a seller and an attorney state where the attorney needs to be present? Let's dive in and let's find out if we can find that answer for you right here. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly the difference between a title state and an attorney state and an attorney that helps represent a seller and how that all gets involved and how that affects you as a wholesaler, as a real estate investor, and how to navigate that process. And I know it might seem like a lot, like, oh man, I gotta learn all this. Look guys, I'm just gonna be straight with you. I have done deals in attorney states, title states. I don't know 100% the legalities of everything, but I know who you need to use and who you need to contact to get the deal done. So that's really all you need to worry about. Well, let's dive in and kind of explain a little bit further, but that's what you're gonna know by the end of this video if you've been having those questions. Okay, so let's answer the question about if a seller needs an attorney and how that can help the seller. So if a seller gets an attorney, usually from my experience here in Utah, since we're a title state and it's not an attorney state where you need an attorney to be there at closing, what the seller will do is they'll say, hey, let me look at the paperwork you just sent me before I sign. Let me have my attorney look at it. That's usually a cop-out they use just because they don't want to sign or they want to take their time or they're not sure. But usually what they would do if they got an attorney is the attorney would have an understanding of the law, of the state, the state law of real estate and all that stuff, and they would look at it and they'd be like, okay, you can sign this or let's take this part out. Now, most of the time when I work with sellers, my contract is so basic and plain. It just says, hey, I'm going to purchase your property for cash. You need to catch up your taxes. It's going to be as is. My contract's basic, right? But then you have the state, the contract, the Rep C that the specific states want agents to use. That's a little bit more in depth. So some people, instead of read it and try to understand it, they'll get an attorney to explain it to them and just make sure they're not making a bad decision. Now that's why someone would get an attorney. And also if property's in probate or if there's multiple people involved in selling the property, they might want to consult an attorney. So that's what an attorney would be for if you're not in an attorney state where that's required for closing, like in Utah, all right? So that's different. Now, if you're in an attorney state, you don't need an attorney to look over your agreement just to be like, hey, can I sign this? No, what happens is you would send that paperwork, the paperwork that you signed to the attorney to get the deal closed, and they would facilitate everything. Now, in Utah, it's a title state. You would send it to the title company. They run the background check. They get everything, make sure the title's clear, and they take care of it. So it's just kind of two different ways that states work. I don't honestly know why they do it, and I could research it and find out more for you, but I would just tell you right now, it's not that important. I don't know exactly like the intricacies of like why it's better to have a title state or an attorney state. All I know is no matter what, if you work with a seller and you sign a contract that's simple, like a real estate purchase contract that's as is, you send that to the attorney that you're working with in an attorney state, or you send a title company with an escrow officer. They're going to take care of everything, especially if you have that relationship. Now, if you're worried about like, oh man, am I doing things the right way? That's why networking is so important. That's why running in the right circles is so important, because for me, if I'm going to a state I've never done a deal, I'm going to use my network and I'm going to say, hey, what's the best attorney to work with in this for my closing, or who's the best title company? And they're going to give me the information that's going to help me feel confident and comfortable. But look, most of the deals that I do are in Utah. I've done deals all over the country, and when I do deals in attorney states, I'll be honest, I don't really like it as much. It just seems a little different and not as smooth as when I do deals in title states. But I actually had a conversation with an attorney at an attorney state, and it was actually in Georgia. That's how they do their closings. And I was able to have a conversation that went pretty well. I want you to see how it goes. It's not something to be intimidated about, but I just wanted you to know in this video that the difference is, with an attorney that's representing a seller, they're looking over the paperwork, they're giving advice, and in an attorney state, that's different than this, they're helping facilitate the closing, okay? So I hope I made that clear. Getting counsel and an attorney to look over your agreement before you sign and, you know, ask them for advice, that's not what an attorney state does. They help with the closing. If you go and get an attorney, if a seller gets help from an attorney, they're asking for legal advice. You're not really getting legal advice from the attorney state, you know, from an attorney state and closing with them. They might give you some advice, but that's not their job. Their job is to close it, okay? And if you want to avoid all that, just do deals with me here in Utah. Hit me up. You don't have to worry about that. I work with great title companies, escrow officers that make it seamless, make it super easy. And that's why I haven't had to worry about this. But this is a question I've been getting: is what's the difference and how do attorneys help sellers? So I wanted to break this down. But let's dive right into this video of how I worked with an attorney in an attorney state to facilitate a closing that I was working on. Let's dive right into it. Our preferred title company, title clearing and escrow. Let's freaking give it a call. Let's get it. We found it. This is a great resource. All right, 1012. Let's give him a call.
Harlan and Florence.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Nathan Payne, and I'm looking for a title company to work with that is like investor friendly.
Okay, well, only there are no, I don't know where you're from, but there are no title companies in Georgia, only attorneys do closings.
I'm sorry, I should have rephrased it. I know that, but I figured, my bad.
That's all we do is investor work, basically.
So I guess I'll real quick just tell you my story. So I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah, where we have title companies. I've done a couple deals in Atlanta, but I've wanted to kind of do more deals there. But before I started working in marketing, trying to get deals to either close or wholesale, I wanted to kind of network with some attorneys out there, so I knew I was doing everything above board and who I could work with. So do you work with wholesalers and like that?
That's all we do is investor work.
Okay. So I just have a couple questions. Do you have a couple minutes?
Sure.
Okay. So usually what we do when we do deals in Utah is we just send in the rep C, the assignment to the title company, and the buyer brings the earnest money, and that's pretty much it. We just have the seller sign and it's good to go. Is that kind of the same process here in Atlanta?
No. We actually do a wet closing and no escrow closings.
Okay.
Yes, you send in your contract and your assignment, and the buyer can send us the earnest money.
Okay.
If you're not using a real estate broker. And then we'll run title. We require payment for title up front, which depending on the counties, anywhere from $150 to $250.
Okay.
And then once once both ends are ready to close, we'll get it scheduled.
Okay. And what did you call it? Did you say a wet closing?
Yeah, you have to come to closing and sign. The parties have to be here or sign with a power of attorney. Georgia requires the people to sign in front of an attorney.
Okay. So does that count if it's like a notary or?
No. It's got to be in front of the closing attorney.
Okay, so how does that work?
We don't do notary closings.
Okay, you don't do notary closing. So let's say one of the buyers is from California. How would that work?
Then we'd send them either a POA or an LLC resolution, depending on.
Okay.
And then someone here would sign for them.
So are title companies like obsolete? You don't even need them in Georgia at all?
No, they were never in Georgia.
Never in
Attorneys
Georgia.
do the closings. The attorneys are have a title agency.
Got it. Okay, got it. That makes sense. All right. Is there title insurance when you do it that way?
Yes. Yeah. You still get a title policy. It's just that the attorneys have the title agencies.
Okay.
You don't have a separate title company and a separate attorney and a separate buyer's attorney or seller's attorney.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for educating me. I just most of the deals I do are in Utah, so it's a little different.
Most of the West are escrow states.
Right. Yeah, I heard a lot of states are trying to get rid of that as well. But the last question I have for you is, do you happen to know any buyers that are buying at this moment that you'd be willing to give me, put me in contact with?
We don't keep buyers lists.
Okay.
That's all marketing on the internet.
Of course. Yeah. I just didn't.
Yeah, we don't keep buyers lists.
Yeah, I didn't need like a list. I just didn't know if you knew anybody specifically who's like, hey, I'm buying right now. Do you have any anybody?
Nobody. No, right now, no one's really buying right now. They all say they do.
Right.
Of the 10 closings we have in the next 2 weeks, they're all signed.
Wow.
I don't know where they're finding the buyers from.
Yeah. So you're saying 10 closing in the next 2 weeks, they're all the wholesalers that have signed deals to end buyers. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I mean, if it's a good deal, I'm sure they'll still buy. But if it's not, buyers definitely aren't going to take that risk right now.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody's got resistance. But,
yeah. Well, I appreciate your time. What's your name, sir?
JD.
JD. And are you the one that I'll be talking to if I save your number in my phone?
No, we don't. Everybody here does everything. We don't have individuals that work on separate files.
Okay. All right. So everybody works on everything. Do you have any suggestions or any advice for me as I go and look for deals right now in the Atlanta area? Like any area to focus on, any area to avoid?
No, I mean it's really most of our investors can't find properties in the metro area.
Yeah, because
we're closing more and more out of the metro area, which is very difficult to close.
And why is that difficult to close outside of the metro area?
Because people don't want to drive 2 hours to come to a closing, and then they don't want to sign a power of attorney. And then they think that they're going to walk away with a check, and we don't do checks, we do wires, and different.
So you're saying you have problems with the buyers and the seller, but not necessarily the wholesaler?
The sellers. Mostly the sellers.
Okay. Yeah. The buyers probably are fine because they've done multiple transactions probably.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And the wholesaler doesn't need to show up at all. This is all just paperwork and then getting wired.
No, if you're assigning, we prefer assignments over 2 closings. It's much cheaper for you, even though it's better for us.
Okay.
But it's also much less aggravation for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great news. You're saying the Atlanta metro area is pretty difficult. So outskirts, but the problem with the outskirts is, well, the people are a little difficult to work with then. Okay. Well, JD, I appreciate your time.
To be honest with you, people in the outside of Georgia don't really want to deal with out-of-staters.
Yeah, well, I get it. I've actually done a couple deals. I've done one in Winder. I've done a couple out there, and it really depends. You just got to, show them that you know what you're doing.
Yeah, but I mean, you're going to get much more resistance in the out of metro area.
I totally get it. So you've obviously seen a slowdown in deals then, compared to what you do.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate your time. I thank you.
All
And
right. Good luck.
Appreciate it. We'll be in touch.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Take care.
Bye. Sweet. Yeah. So that's a great contact. So if I get a deal, this is a great guy to work with. And this is a great resource. I'm going to take this and use this. This thing is sweet.